What makes good evidence for me is when we follow the direction of the communicator, when we let go of the control of what we perceive to be good evidence. I can tell you what I think is good evidence, factual evidence, evidence that can't be questioned, such as full names and addresses and those hobbies and lifestyles and things that they did with you.
As the medium, we can get fixated on what we think good evidence is. And as we progress through our mediumship, the evidence will change. For instance, when we're first starting, to be able to receive some specific evidence might seem like the best thing ever. But forward wind 10 years, I would suspect that that same evidence doesn't quite feel like it's as far as we can reach within our mediumship. So we have to allow our mediumship to develop as we do. So we can't really gauge what good evidence is from a medium's standpoint, because we're always looking to go more in depth, to go deeper, to explore, to tell the story.
But actually, we've also got to look at the need of the recipient's need in that moment, because they're going through something in life. Maybe they're going through a breakup or grieving, they've lost a job or whichever. So we've got to remember in those moments the evidence and the reasons why they've come for that reading or they're at a demonstration. So when we talk about evidence, it's down to the need of two things: need of the spirit world, need of the recipient. And if we look at what evidence does, it doesn't just in that moment make you think of your loved one, but it also takes you down memory lane. It helps you remember other details, other facts. It's almost, if you will, where we go down a rabbit hole with that evidence, where it takes us back through a lifetime, a journey of life. Our job as the medium is to tell the story of life.
But that isn't even the end of the story when we talk about evidence or what's good evidence. Because if we've got somebody in front of us, when their person is in the spirit world, and that person happens to have had a highly emotional relationship where there were lots of memories and lots of experiences, and the person in the spirit world is highly emotional, then my sitter is going to be more touched by the evidence that is of an emotional quality. So perhaps names and dates and places and clairvoyant images that I can unfold might sound like great evidence, but in actual fact, for the sitter and for that communicator, the emotional evidence will be the thing that means that sitter thinks it's great evidence. If I've got somebody in the spirit world that is very outspoken and very able to articulate themselves, very creative, and not necessarily a high level of emotional intelligence, but is very intellectual within the mind, they might find it easier to share evidence that are of a nature through clairvoyance, through clairaudience, through factual information, through details that unfold the story. And I might not get an awful lot of clairsentience with that. But for my sitter, knowing their person the way they do, that has been exactly the type of evidence they've needed.
And if we really do our job properly, as we receive or were impressed with that evidence, our own awareness takes us into emotional places, into mental perceptions that we have and physical reactions that add depth and understanding, that enable us to land or present that evidence with empathy and knowledge of where it's going and how it's meant to be. So evidence comes in many different forms, and it's all down to the recipient's need and that spirit world need in that present moment. And if we look at the people that come forward, we might want to hear from mother, but it might be dad that comes forward, because in that moment of need, it might be dad's job to talk about careers, or he was the one that was interested. So it's relevant to why the communication, why the spirit will come forward in the way that they do. But evidence isn't just information. Evidence is memories of life, unique facts that can't be researched, that sometimes make you think and you go, oh, I forgot all about that. It's done for a reason, to inspire the living, to help them pull their socks up, to live their fullest life, to live their truest form of life as well. So as we reflect on evidence, it really is down to that recipient's need in that moment.
So we have to be aware that when we are trying to gauge what evidence is good and which isn't, we have to look at it from both aspects. Firstly, we have to take into account the type of person in the spirit world, what type of evidence seems right for them. Then we need to run it through our own awareness, our own development, our own ability to understand the evidence. That's the only part that we can have control over, not the content, not how it's shared, but how we can understand it through our own development, our own life experience. And this is where life experience adds to the quality of the mediumship. Because unless I understand what the story of a picture or a word or a feeling is, I can't unfold that because it's out with my understanding. Life experience, that personal journey, adds a depth to the evidence that can only come from the personal journey. I've heard mediums talk about having information. Well, I would ask the question, what's the difference between information and evidence? Information is things that a medium can give off statement after statement after statement with no response from the sitter. Therefore, the medium isn't entirely sure if they are getting the evidence correct, and the sitter has no opportunity to respond, either to say yes or no. Therefore, it remains information. It only becomes evidence when it becomes verified, when it becomes, if you wish to use the word, validated. Not validation for the medium, but for the information to be validated. At that point, it becomes evidential.
There's different forms we get. We can get objective evidence, which is all about facts and dates and real specific pieces of undeniable, undoubtable evidence that we know for facts, such as those full names and addresses, locations, hobbies, and memories that we shared together where we went to certain locations in the world. But then we start to look at emotional evidence, which is warming, which is heartfelt, which is about the personality, the character of the people coming forward, and the moment shared. If we have somebody who's very quiet or timid in the spirit world, they're not going to be outspoken, they're not going to be extroverts, they're going to be exactly who they were. So there will be memories shared of quiet times together, maybe, how they were reserved, maybe sat out of the way and didn't want any attention at family gatherings or celebrations. Or maybe it was those moments where they just gave you that look and you knew how they felt because you felt their presence. Or maybe they give you that smile. That type of evidence is just as profound as the full names and addresses, because it's memories and emotional memories that are shared and unique times that are shared together.
So as a medium, I'm always eager to find out, how can I do better? I can only find out how I do better by finding out where my errors in understanding the evidence. The spirit person always knows which evidence they want to give. The medium, however, is the part that can get it wrong. So in terms of evidence, we have to be open to learning, which means we have to be open to getting it wrong, which means we have to be open to stepping outside a zone where we look good, I suppose, where we have the ego brushed and people telling us how great we are. We don't develop as mediums in that space. Growth happens when we start expanding our understanding and risking getting that no, and risking not looking great in that moment, but taking that opportunity, as Phil and I speak about, the no being the new opportunity, N-O. It's incredibly important that we recognize that as mediums, we are never the finished article. We're never the master at our mediumship.
If we can remember as a medium to put ourselves to one side, surrender to the story of the communicator, their story of life, how they want to bring it, in the way that they want to bring it, then that's when we can start to say we're consistently bringing good evidence through, not for its wow factor, but for its meaning to that recipient. I remember doing a contact for a young lady where I brought several people through, full names and addresses, and I was over the moon. But I could tell by the recipient's face they weren't impressed. They were just facts, they were just details. But when I mentioned the little dog, then I saw a difference. The memories of the dog, how it used to almost smile. You could see the joy, you could see the tears in the recipient's eyes. There was such an overwhelming emotional, it was palatable in the room, and I felt it. And it woke me up to surrendering and understanding what I'm meant to do as a medium. My job as the medium, to bring forward how they want to bring their evidence, whether it's emotional, whether it's objective, in the way that they want to bring it. My job is not to get in the way of that story, but to really help that process by allowing and surrendering to their will, and to use my awareness to deepen it to a greater effect.
We can learn to master our emotions, but we're never the master of our mediumship. We do not know fully what our potential is. That potential is fully understood by the people that love and care and guide us from the spirit world. But in terms of our own potential, I firmly believe that I can achieve more. I'm always looking to be that better medium for the spirit world, or that better sidekick for the sitter. So for me, evidence will always have an aspect and a facet to it that I will always make the assumption that I've missed something, because that keeps my curiosity there, that keeps me exploring, and it means I don't become over complacent with evidence I'm giving. I'm always curious about what more could I have got out there? What more could I have achieved from that evidence?
What we must remember as a medium is we are the active ingredient in the contact. We're not holding things at arm's length and just saying, this is what I've got, this must mean something to you. Our job as the medium is to actively engage with that evidence, follow that evidence as it leads us emotionally, mentally and physically into a deeper understanding of it, and letting go of the need of where it's going to take us, what the end result is. We must trust the process, trust the spirit world, and just follow and surrender. And the more that we do that, it has a profound effect on the recipient. So for me, evidence can only be deemed good by the recipient in that moment. And as a medium, we've got to understand that the process is to surrender to what is given and have no judgment on it, but deliver it in the best way that we can, with understanding and empathy.